The rain had been falling for 3 straight days, washing the small town in shades of gray and silver. On the edge of a forgotten street stood an old repair shop with a flickering sign that read, "Samir's Fix-It Corner." Inside, time seemed frozen, the scent of oil, wood, and dust mixed with the faint hum of machines that hadn't been used in years. It was a place where broken things came to life again, sometimes, even broken hearts. That evening, just as Samir was about to close the shop, the door creaked open. A woman stepped in, her coat dripping, her eyes sharp yet filled with an exhaustion that words couldn't hide. She placed something wrapped in a plastic bag on the counter, an old, rusted radio, the kind that belonged in another century. Her voice was low but firm when she spoke, "Fix this ancient radio right now, and I'll spend a night with you." The words sliced through the silence like lightning. Samir froze, the wrench slipping from his fingers and clattering onto the floor. He had seen desperation before, people begging him to fix their fans in summer or heaters in winter, but never anything like this. Her face was calm, yet behind it, a storm brewed. "Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of stories that remind us of our shared humanity, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support helps us keep telling stories that touch the soul." Samir didn't respond immediately. He simply looked at her, trying to understand what pain or urgency could lead someone to make such a strange offer. She avoided his gaze, her fingers tightening on the edge of the counter. Her name, as he would soon learn, was Alina. She explained in a voice that trembled like the rain outside that the radio belonged to her father, the only thing she had left of him. He used to repair it every Sunday morning, playing old songs that filled their small house with laughter. But when he passed away 2 months ago, the radio stopped working. It was as if the heart of the house had gone silent. And now, tomorrow was her father's memorial. She wanted the radio to play just one more song for him. Samir understood. He saw it in her eyes, the ache of love mixed with regret, the way grief clings to small objects because they hold the memories words can't carry. He didn't mention her earlier offer. Instead, he said softly, "Leave it here. I'll try." But Alina shook her head. She said she couldn't leave it, not even for a night. She had taken it from her father's study without her mother's knowledge. Her mother didn't want to be reminded of him, didn't want the pain of the past. So Alina had to bring it back before morning. That's why she had made that desperate offer, not out of anything indecent, but out of sheer panic. She needed help, and she didn't know any other way to make someone take her seriously at this late hour. Samir nodded slowly. He turned the radio over, studying its broken wires and corroded circuits. It was an antique, from the 1950s maybe, and it had suffered years of neglect. The internal parts were rusted beyond recognition. It wasn't just a repair, it was resurrection. He got to work, his hands steady, his mind focused. The rain continued outside, drumming against the windowpane, while the soft ticking of his clock marked the passing hours. Alina sat nearby, watching him in silence. Sometimes, she would look at the radio and whisper things under her breath, maybe memories, maybe apologies. As midnight passed, Samir found himself lost in the rhythm of repair. Each screw, each wire, felt like stitching back a fragment of someone's life. He thought of his own past, how he once dreamed of becoming an engineer, how life's weight and tragedy had pushed him into this small forgotten corner. Years ago, he had lost his fiancée, Mira, in a car accident just days before their wedding. Since then, he had stopped listening to music, stopped laughing, stopped living. Now, as he worked on the radio, something inside him stirred, an echo of purpose he thought was long gone. Around 2 a.m., Alina began to doze off in the chair, her head resting against the counter. Samir looked at her for a moment. The streetlight outside painted her face in a pale, golden hue. He could see that she wasn't just beautiful, she was broken in the same way he was. By dawn, he had disassembled and reassembled the radio 3 times. His fingers were sore, his eyes burning, but he didn't give up. He whispered a quiet prayer as he reconnected the final wire and turned the knob. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a crackle, soft at first, like the breath of a ghost. And then, music. It was faint but real. An old tune, the kind that carried the warmth of another time. Samir's chest tightened. He looked over at Alina, who woke up to the sound. Her eyes widened, disbelief flooding her expression. She pressed her hands to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. For a long moment, neither spoke. The music filled the room, mixing with the sound of rain easing into dawn. Then, quietly, Alina whispered, that was his favorite song. Samir smiled faintly. He didn't ask for payment, not even a thank you. He just nodded and said, you should take it home. Let him hear it again. She stood there, trembling. She wanted to say something, but words wouldn't come. Instead, she picked up the radio gently, like something sacred. Before leaving, she turned to him and said, you didn't fix a machine tonight, you fixed a memory. When she left, the shop felt quieter than before. Samir stood there, watching the rain fade into morning light. He didn't realize it yet, but that night had changed something in both of them. The next evening, as he was closing the shop, Alina returned. This time, she wasn't desperate. She was smiling softly, holding a small thermos of coffee and a packet of her father's favorite biscuits. She told him that the radio had played beautifully during the memorial, and her mother had cried, not out of pain, but out of peace. It was as if hearing that old song had allowed her to finally let go. Samir invited her in, and for the first time in years, he made 2 cups of tea. They sat there, talking for hours. She told him stories of her father, and he shared memories of Mira. They laughed, cried, and found a strange comfort in each other's company. Over the next few weeks, Alina visited often. Sometimes with another broken item, a clock, a lamp, a typewriter. But it wasn't really about repairs anymore. It was about the quiet companionship between 2 souls who understood loss. The repair shop, once a place of silence, slowly filled with warmth and laughter again. One evening, Alina brought something wrapped in brown paper. She handed it to Samir and said, this is for you. Inside was an old cassette player, the kind he hadn't seen since his youth. She said, you've helped me bring back my father's memories. Maybe it's time you listen to yours again. That night, after she left, Samir sat alone in his shop and played one of his old tapes, a recording of Mira singing. Her voice filled the room, soft and pure. Tears rolled down his face, but they weren't bitter anymore. They were healing. As weeks turned into months, something beautiful began to blossom between them, not rushed, not planned, but natural, like sunlight finding its way through clouds. Samir realized that sometimes, kindness repairs more than machines, it repairs hearts. And one evening, as they stood in front of the shop watching the sunset, Alina smiled and said with a gentle laugh, you know, when I made that crazy offer that night, I never imagined this is how it would end. Samir chuckled softly, eyes warm. You didn't spend a night with me, Alina. But you gave me back all my mornings. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness, compassion, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us of the beauty still left in this world. And before we end, I'd love to know your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in Alina's place that night? Leave your answer in the comments below. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness create the loudest echoes, and just like that old radio, they remind us that even broken things can sing again.